Hey everybody, I'm Evan and welcome to another episode of the ProfNoctis show. This week we have the amazing, the incredible, the intelligent, the well-substantiatedly researched Sector 6, aka John. We just had the best time talking to him about everything Final Fantasy. Wade, what can we look forward to as people remember to like and subscribe? And also go over to our little podcast. We got a little podcast wherever you get your podcasts. If you hit subscribe on that, it'll automatically get delivered to your devices however you want, and it super duper helps us out. So subscribe to that podcast too. That being said, Wade, what can we expect?
You're not going to believe this episode. It's so good. Sector 6, John has so many cool things to say. It blows my mind. Evan, there's a moment at the end that Evan and I just like have our minds blown.
I literally
You're going to hear some things. You're going to hear some things about John, about the channel, Sector 6, but then we're going to get into Zack and what's going on with these worlds, and it's so cool. I hope that you enjoy. So, without further ado, let's mosey.
Let's mosey!
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the ProfNoctis show. I am, as always, here with Evan. Say hey, Evan.
I'm here.
You're here. And we are just beyond excited to have with us one of my absolute favorite creators, one of the channels that does the deepest dives into the games that I love, Sector 6. How you doing today?
I am doing good. How's it going, everyone? How's it going, Wade? How's it going, Evan? Pleasure to see you all.
Oh, it's good.
It's good times.
Oh,
it is.
It's good. If the pre-show is any indication, we're gonna have a great time.
Just gotta watch out for my chair making its little additions to the broadcast.
I swear.
It's bad, man. It's bad, man. This is what happens when you're too big.
Man, when we have interacted a lot of times online, on Twitter/X and on YouTube and stuff, but this is the first time that we've actually sat down and like talked somewhat face to face. So I'm just excited to get to meet you, to get to know you a little bit, and just to thank you for all the content that you put out. You put out great stuff, man.
Oh, same to you as well. And it's really good that doing all of this lets us connect with each other like this and kind of meet new people, get involved with new people, and get new perspectives that we might not have had before. It's just always good.
Oh yeah, and we're definitely going to get into some of those things. So as you know, we love to talk to the content creators, the different channels that we interview, and for the first bit of time, we like to establish credibility. So there may be some people I cannot imagine in this fandom, but there may be some people that are new to the Sector 6 channel. So hopefully today we're going to get a little bit of insight as to who you are, what you produce, and then also how you came to be. And so could you tell us a little bit about your channel, what it's about as we get going?
So I make predominantly Final Fantasy content, be it walkthroughs, guides, breakdowns, theory videos, news breakdowns, just kind of everything centered around Final Fantasy, and especially Final Fantasy 7 Rebirth and Remake at the minute. That's pretty much the main thing. That's like 90% of the content at the minute. But I am branching out into other games and checking out other things on the channel. So I'm definitely hoping to bring a similar approach to a wider variety of games in time. And yeah, it's good fun. We have a good time over there. It's good getting people involved. I love the feedback in the comments. Like sometimes the comments have spawned a new video. It's just fun. It's just great.
Your delivery,
but yeah, that's me.
Yeah, your delivery is great. Like, I love the way that you present the information. It's very interactive for just watching a video. It feels almost like a live stream feel, the way that you kind of anticipate what people might be curious about and then kind of let them have the freedom to ask those questions. I really enjoyed that. In one of your recent videos, you said, oh, well, some of you may, I won't try and do the accent because it's too good. So many of you, may have some curiosities about this. I'd love to hear about that. And you kind of had that like natural pacing for knowing when to almost interrupt your own idea to keep things fresh and hold folks' attention. Is that something that you practiced, or is that something that you do just naturally?
I kind of think it's something that I do naturally, but it was something that I had to consciously bring into the YouTube content because initially I used to really heavily script things, you know, and get all my ideas layered out, and I'd be reading from the script, and it kind of felt a little bit robotic for me. Like I get that with some people that works and that's the best way for them to do it, but for me, I don't know. I didn't, when I'd watch my own videos, I didn't feel the authenticity coming back. So I've tried to adapt to more, like you were saying, a conversational flow with it, kind of try and encourage that forwards and backwards a little bit more. And like someone commented on the most recent video that it's just kind of like we're sat there having a conversation, just playing the game together, you know, just going through it. And that's definitely what I'm shooting for.
That's a real challenge. So many of my students who are trying to hone this art of presentation, they struggle with this, I guess, approachability, this conversational sort of nature. And that, like, honestly, there's been a few times when I've been like, you need to go check out a few YouTubers, people on YouTube. And I've suggested your channel, like he's speaking to a camera, but you can tell that it's like you're talking to a friend there. And that is just such a great quality, something I try to hone as well. So I appreciate you doing that. Have you been in communications? Like, let us know a little bit of your backstory. How did you kind of
Have you
get
always
into
been a
this?
talk mans?
Yes. Have you always been a talk man?
You always do the words.
The words.
No, I mean, I've done a lot of customer service roles over my life and tech support roles and things like that. So maybe it's potentially something that I've developed through those roles, just acquiring that skill set over time. Because I've probably been doing that sort of stuff for about 10, 15 years now. Something like that,
so
various
you have a lot
roles.
of stories.
Oh, yes, a little bit. Be it like working for a mobile phone company where people would just ring up and be like, can I have £1 worth of credit for free, please? And it's like, this is the third time you've rang me today. What are you doing?
Can you do that? Can I call my phone company and be like, can I have some
You'd be
credit?
surprised how many people do it and get away with it just because the person on the phone is just like, I'm just going to give you £1 and make you go away. There you go, £1. See you later. Yeah, and it's just I was the horrible one. I'd be like, can you just, are you in an emergency situation? No. It's like, probably not then.
They made you be the
But then
gatekeeper.
I've done emergency breakdown work for like the AA in the UK, and that is a completely different level because you've got people like breaking down, panicking on the edge of the motorway or in the middle of the motorway in some circumstances, and it's just a bit like, okay, different skill set, try and calm people down, try and get them to do the right thing in the moment. And yeah, I think the variety of different skills from the different roles that I've done have probably kind of come together. I mean, we are our experiences.
Yeah.
So
I could see that. That is interesting. We are our experiences. I wonder where the name Sector 6 for the channel comes from. I have some guesses, but I am curious what product of your experiences you managed to come up with to arrive at the Sector 6 name for the channel.
It's got to be something catchy, hasn't it, really? It's got to be something. Alliteration works a lot of the time. And Final Fantasy VII is going to be the main focus of the channel, or at least it was at that point. It was just all FF7 originally. And one of my favourite bits of Final Fantasy VII, there you go, is Wall Market, Sector 6.
Yep.
So, yeah,
good.
Just had to run with it.
Well, you know, you see it and you think it, but sometimes there's a little bit like under that. So that was your favorite part of the game?
No complexity. It was one of. It was definitely one of. And I think I don't know what it was that just made me think of it, but as soon as I said it in my head, I was like, yeah, I think that's the one. I think we'll go with that because nothing else I thought of after that sounded anywhere near as good. Although I did make the mistake of having gaming at the end of it in the early days. That's gone. Don't do that.
I think we all go through that though. Like there was an iteration where it was ProfNoctis Gaming, and like I dropped that like a bad habit.
It's a learning curve, just like the skills to edit the videos and script write and everything like that. You've also got to learn how to present the channel and things like that. So
exactly true.
We get there. We get there.
So you mentioned Wall Market and Sector 6. Wall Market is kind of known for some choices, right? Some design things and just the tenor of it. Is that what people expect when they go to your channel? Is it very Wall Market-esque in your opinion?
A little bit. I think it kind of goes along with that kind of less rigid vibe with the
Oh.
videos potentially. I think that maybe ties in, and I don't know if I intentionally did that or if it was more of a subconscious thing, because like I say, in the early days it was very rigid, and I've kind of devolved, either way, gone to that state of kind of being a bit more chill with it and go with the flow, and it does work. It does work. Not as raucous. Not as raucous.
Not as raucous.
But a little bit of edge. Just
Could be.
a little bit.
You get those lights going behind you, it could get raucous really quick.
Oh, yeah.
Like just start pulsing them.
I'm not going to mess with the settings because the other day they just wouldn't stop, and I was like, no, stop it, and they were just blinking away in the background. But yes.
Take a break. So let's talk a little bit about your history with video games in general. Did you play them growing up? Something you've always done? Was it introduced to you at a later age? Tell me a little bit about kind of what made you fall in love with video games and what kind of helped you get to where you're at.
It was so like my very earliest experiences with gaming were I got a NES back in the late 80s, and I'm pretty confident it was just an excuse for my dad to be able to have a NES and play on that. So I benefited from that. I'm fine with it. And we also had this, I don't know if you'll have heard of it, like the old Amstrads, the cassette loading Amstrads, the CPC 464. Yeah, it was like a full keyboard, but it had a cassette deck on it and its own proprietary monitor that came with it and plugged into it.
I'm looking this thing up. What's it called?
The Amstrad 464.
Amstrad
and you'll
464? All right, I'm looking.
Yeah.
How do you type in a British accent in your keyboard? I don't have that keyboard added on.
You've got to go into the settings and change it from US layout. Yeah, that's what it is. It just automatically corrects it for you. It's amazing.
Why are crackers coming up when I type biscuit?
God, let me.
Oh, this is interesting. The Amstrad 464.
There it is. I
Yeah,
see
it's really old.
Oh,
it's
come on.
super old.
Oh, I love
super
this.
old.
All right.
And it came with a book
of this
it came with a book about this thick, and it was like it'd have little things in there to teach you how to code. So it'd teach you how to code like a little stickman sprite just appearing on one side of the screen, walking across it, and disappearing on the other side. And it had like this little section in it where you could program a game of Pontoon, so Blackjack 21.
Yeah.
You could literally program it to do that, and you could then play it after you'd done it. It wouldn't save afterwards because old computers, but it was just one of those little fun things to, try and get people started with that sort of stuff young, potentially. But then there was the Nintendo as well, and Duck Hunt and Mario.
Did you get into like the programming stuff and you had a good time with it because you enjoyed that, or was you focused on any kind of specific game, anything that sticks out from your childhood?
I didn't when I was younger with the programming stuff. I did web design a fair bit, so sort of like with HTML coding and then moving into CSS and JavaScript and stuff like that. But in recent years, I have learned how to do like basic Python coding and C+ and stuff like that. I do have this ambition one day to, at the very least, even if it's something small, make a game. I think it'd just be fun. Even if it's bad, just do it and go through the process and just contribute to the gaming sphere. I think it would be fun.
What would you make?
I don't know.
Yeah, are you
ambition-wise, I'd want to make some sort of RPG, but that is not the place to start with making a game.
Sure.
That is 100% not the place to start. I'd probably make just some rubbish mobile game or something like Flappy Bird, but not Flappy. Do you know what I mean? Something equivalent, something simple.
Well, when you think about making a game, is it what excites you most? Is it about the gameplay? Is it the story, or is it how it all comes together? The artwork? What really entices you?
So for me, it'd be the process. I love just learning new processes and going through new processes and just putting things together. I really enjoy that. Like learning how to edit video and everything like that. I didn't know anything about it. I'd done some graphic design, but I'd never done video. I'd never done audio. And then I just thought, I'll make a YouTube channel. That'll be fun. Yeah, let's do that. So it was a complete learning curve. And if you go back, they're all still up there. Some of those early videos, so bad.
But you're doing it, right? Like so many folks say that they get stuck because it's just all ideas and they hit these kind of gates and they don't want to push past it. What is it about your personality, maybe your upbringing, that has helped you to just do it, to when you encounter a barrier, learn how to overcome it and kind of keep pushing forward?
I don't know. Again, I think it's that enjoyment of the process. I think it really is that enjoyment of learning new things. Like I'm very much I wouldn't say that I learn something new and then get bored of it, but I'll learn something new and I'll be like, right, what else can I learn now?
Oh yeah.
What's the next thing that I can learn? But with the whole YouTube side of it, it's been pretty consistent now for about 4.5 years. So there's something about it that's definitely grabbed me and kept me invested in it 100%.
Sparks
I'm just
your
not too sure how to
curiosity, yeah.
quantify it. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's difficult to quantify. It really is.
But that's how it
But
is
it's-
sometimes when we
it's
get in
good.
that state, right? Where we kind of hit that and we're like, oh, I'm just having a good time. Maybe even like time kind of slips away a little bit. You're in that flow
Yeah.
state and you're really into something and you're like, oh, I'm just kind of lost in the task. I'm lost in the curiosity and the learning. And it's so funny how that just feels natural when you find it. And then when we try and quantify it, like you said, or describe it, we can't find the words because you're like, I don't know. It's just me.
difficult. Yeah, it's just a thing I'm doing. What?
But we do have to try a lot of things in order to find that. And I think that's when you get somebody like yourself who's interested in trying a lot of different things, you probably know pretty quickly when you're into something or not into something. And I imagine you've tried a lot of things over the years so that you've kind of tested and things like that with your personality. So it's interesting how that kind of contributes to where you're at now.
It's that kind of thing of we are our experiences, and like all these different things that we do might gradually nudge us in the right direction of what fits us in life, because it is difficult to find the thing that fits you and the thing that you not only can do but want to do and enjoy doing and get fulfillment from doing. It's difficult to find that. And like even with the fact that like my content, I don't really make any kind of wage off it or anything like that, but I get that fulfillment from doing it. And it's good. It's enjoyable. And it's good when you see people find that as well. It's good to help others hopefully find that. So
that's a great attitude.
So what are some of the things that you have tried out just for a new experience? What are some things that you leaned into, took the experience, maybe stayed with it, dropped it? Is there anything that you've endeavored to achieve and attain?
Tried loads of different sports and things like that. I've tried loads of different career roles. Like I've done security work, I've worked at the airport, I've done the whole customer service and tech support thing.
Okay.
I've done retail work. I've literally just hopped about. I even did some construction work a long time ago. Just kind of hopped about and done bits and pieces and kind of gradually found myself, like I say, interacting with people a lot more and doing the customer service side of things as a main focus for a very long time. And yeah.
Well, you mentioned at the beginning you tried sports and all that kind of stuff before. That may be something that people on your channel even don't really know a lot about. So tell us the lore of Sector 6 Sports. It was almost a sports channel, I guess.
Maybe it could have been. No, the Sector Sports. Yeah. No,
I like it.
I like it.
That's another channel one day. That's another channel.
There you go.
No, so from like when I was young, I always did like a lot of martial arts. So I studied traditional jiu-jitsu, Shotokan karate, freestyle karate. And then as I got older, I dove into a wider array of martial arts because like one of the mindsets with martial arts is you start off with one martial art, maybe two, and you focus on that. And that's where you learn the core of your skill set and your abilities and like the disciplines that you have to learn in order to keep yourself focused on that kind of training. And then you reach a point where it's like, right, I'm confident in the martial art that I've done. I know that martial art. And there's obviously still things to learn, but in general, I know it. Now it's time to go and try that martial art and see what I can take from it and bring back. And then go and try that. So I've tried things like Sambo, I've tried kickboxing, I've tried capoeira, didn't bring anything back from that, not very good at it. We did Wing Chun,
Brazilian
things like
dance
that.
fighting,
Wow.
if anybody doesn't know.
Yeah, Brazilian dance fighting. It's interesting how that came about with the whole hands were shackled in prison, so they developed that dancing system and used that as support.
Yeah, talk a little bit about the history of that, because I think that's an interesting fact. Because you sound like you get interested in the origin of something in order to understand it a little bit better, and I see that in your videos as well.
Yeah.
So maybe talk a little bit about capoeira and like the history there, and then if you wouldn't mind talking about like how you expound on your curiosities to understand something. I think that's an interesting part about you and your channel.
With like the capoeira stuff, it came about because people were in prison basically and they were chained up. The hands were shackled, sometimes the feet were shackled, but most of the time it was kind of like the hands were shackled so they couldn't attack people and stuff like that. And also they wanted to train, but they didn't want to make it obvious that they were training to the prison guards in the prison. So they developed a dance system that encompassed all of the techniques that they would be able to use while in that state. So if you played Tekken 3 back in the day, and Eddie and all of his dances, you see that it's all hand plants on the ground, and the legs are the things that are predominantly doing the attacking.
Wow,
He does have his hands free and he punches a little bit, but most of his moves are based on like using his hands as a base and then the legs to attack. And it was just really interesting how it developed from that adversity of not being able to fight, which if you want to do that, cool, but also not being able to train without the guards going, we need to stop that.
Okay, that's really funny. I'd never made that connection with Eddie. Eddie was my favorite character in Tekken. Yeah,
he is the
real
capoeira
talk.
guy. He is
I
the
love that.
Brazilian
Now I
capoeira
need to go
guy.
back and play that and watch his hand motions. That's perfect. Thank you for that.
It's a really cool system. I'm just not very good at it. You need to be reasonably flexible and dexterous, and I am a little bit, but not that much. It was fun though, just kind of shimmying about.
Well, talk me through your process. When something sparks your curiosity and you've decided that you want to make a video on something or learn more about it, how do you start your research? Where do you substantiate kind of some of your opinions? Because you always cite some sources. You're really good about making sure that you're talking about the origin. Like, here's the margin of error for what I'm doing. I thought that was a really good thing that you did in a recent video when you were talking about an interview and you said, hey, listen, I may get some of this wrong with the translation, and I just want you to know that, but I don't want that to hold us back from trying to find the information that's in it. That being said, let's move on, right? I think that's a really so there takes a lot of humility to be able to do that, but then you also substantiate your sources with a lot of research. What does that process look like for you? And tell us a little bit about how some of that development comes about.
I mean, it depends definitely on what it is. If it's something that I can actually do, I'm always someone that will go and do it in order to get the experience, because I feel like I learn things better from actually going through the process and doing it. So like when I learned to code, I did a load of courses and got examples and things like that. And I was like, right, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. And now I'm going to do my variant of this and things like that. And just kind of try to adapt it and make it so that it fits in with my mind a little bit more from the original template. And with like producing videos and like Final Fantasy and grabbing the information for the theories, again, playing the game is the core way to get that information in, and reading the material like directly at the source, because sometimes you can read someone else's interpretation of the source and that can put a bit of a skew on it. So I always try my best, at least, to focus on the actual source itself if I can, and experience that myself. So in the same way that if I want to learn something that I'm going to do, I'll experience it myself. Although YouTube has definitely become very helpful for quickly looking something up. You know, if you already kind of know something, but you're not 100%, it's like, right, I'm going to double check something. YouTube, Wikipedia, Google, all that sort of stuff definitely comes in handy these days.
Yeah, absolutely.
Makes me think back to when teachers used to tell you, you won't have a calculator in your pocket in the future. So I think I will.
Joke's on you. I'll have an entire TV.
That aged really well.
It did. It really did.
How long have you done YouTube and content creation?
It's about 3.5 years now, something like that. I think I started just before Remake, so maybe 4 years.
Okay.
I think literally about a month before Remake.
Wow. So was it Remake that made you want to get into content creation? Talk to us a little bit about that. Had you been watching YouTube and Twitch and things like that?
Not Twitch. I'd never really watch streamers. I'm even now I don't really watch streams. Like I don't have time. If I've got time to watch a stream, I can be making something. You know what I mean?
That's relatable.
Yeah. So that's kind of the mindset on that. But YouTube definitely, like the announcement for Remake at E3 brought me into kind of watching things on YouTube a little bit. And Death Unites Us, 4-8 Productions, possibly my favorite Final Fantasy creator. He had a massive series of videos that broke the original Final Fantasy 7. I was going to say broke them down, but just broke them.
What was that name again?
What was that name?
So it's Death Unites Us, but the channel is 4-8 Productions. I'll link you to it. And he very much focuses on the OG, and like Final Fantasy 7 and materia combination and ways to break the game. So a lot of the skips that get found for speedrunners to use have kind of come from him and people that are adjacent to him. He's very much big in that community. Like he recently did a video where you can revive Aerith in game without the use of any kind of action replay cartridge or anything like that. You use, I think it's a bug on the PC version of the game where when you save, it kind of saves an echo of the save state, and you can use it to warp using the Yuffie interaction. You know, when you find Yuffie in the forest. I don't know the exact details of it, but it is super interesting.
It's magic.
And that mechanical breaking of Final Fantasy 7.
Okay.
And that coupled with the remake project made me think I could probably do this. I should give this a go. This will be fun.
I really appreciate you mentioning this, because I mean, I've never heard of
I will link you right
4-8 Productions Death Unites Us. I've just Googled them. Really
Have you got
interesting
him?
stuff. You know, this is something that people don't realize. A lot of us, you know, we're not as embedded in the YouTube and Twitch space as people think that we are, just because we create on there.
Yeah, this is it. A lot of your time is spent creating.
Actually creating, and so it's really interesting that you had something to kind of go off of and say, hey, maybe I could contribute to that. And if you're anything like me, you've kind of caught up with other creators after
I'm
the
getting
fact.
there.
It's like,
Yeah.
oh, okay, cool.
Wow, they're all already doing things. No one's going to watch me, but they will because they will
That's
because
the truth.
everyone. There's plenty of room for everybody, and we all have different. Like I say, different experiences, different takes, different perspectives, different lenses that we view things through.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of difference between all of us, and it's good fun.
I think there's a lot that everybody has to say, but also there's a lot that you can relate to in different personalities. And that's one of the things that makes Final Fantasy attractive, I think, is the host of characters and being able to see yourself in different parts of different characters. So I have really enjoyed personally getting to know different parts of people and the things that they really enjoyed about the games and what they connected with, because it was so different. And it's, I think, what gives these games so much life outside of just a playthrough. And they do veer way more into that like kind of artistic cinematic storytelling than some other games do. As you have grown and kind of gained some access to the sources that are maybe a little different than when you started out, I'm curious how that has impacted your ability to kind of dive deeper into the story and maybe your perspective on some of the work that you're creating. Because as somebody who likes to go straight to the source, as you've continued to work, you're getting some new opportunities. I wonder if you could speak to kind of what that's meant to you and kind of what you're doing to take advantage of those opportunities.
It's definitely helpful when you are able to, get a little bit closer to the sauce. Yes, the sauce.
Yes.
I'm not quite in there yet, but I'm getting there. I'm working my way, and I just keep shuffling a little bit closer with every video. I think that's what I'm doing. I'm that guy, there's a photograph being taken, and there's someone just stood about 20 feet away in the background, and then the next photo, they're 10 feet closer, and then the next feet. I'm getting there. I'm working my way in there. But it's beneficial, definitely, and it can give you, like, just from the perspective of, as a YouTube channel wanting to grow, it gives you that leg up because you've got that maybe slightly earlier access. Maybe you can put a bit more time into the work that you're doing then, because you've not got that pressure of, oh my God, this just came out, I need to be the first. I've got to be the first. That pressure kind of goes away a little bit. And to be fair, I try and get rid of that pressure anyway, because again, like we were saying a second ago, everyone contributes their own thing and their own angle. So being first isn't the biggest, but you kind of need to be early still.
Yeah, that's something that is really, really helpful for me as well. There is this pressure to always be the first one out there because, reaction videos and all that kind of stuff. I mean, I don't know when you finished Rebirth, I was like 3 months after it was released. And so it was just one of those things. I was 175 hours into the game and then finally finished my first playthrough. Okay. So
wow.
I just really like taking my time on things. And also, I mean, like you probably relate to this, like I've got a full-time job. I've got a life that I've got to also try to make sense of and maintain.
I streamed it completely.
Oh my goodness.
That exact reason, because my intention was I'll stream it, but then I'll do it off stream as well. And I'll speed ahead off stream and get all the information and do my bit that didn't happen.
No,
That
of course
100%
not.
didn't happen. So I think it was 125 hours for me,
Yeah.
like 2 and a bit months after the release. I was finished and
Yeah.
like, okay.
Well, Evan kind of mentioned this, but like you have gotten some really cool opportunities. I mean, we've seen following you on social media. You got to do an event
Oh,
with
Logitech.
MJ Gallagher, first of all, friend of
Oh,
the show,
yeah.
and Paul Tinto. Am I saying that right? Tinto or
Paul
Tinto or
Tinto, yeah.
Tinto? So,
Such a
voice of
cool
Kate
guy.
Sith in Rebirth, and that was awesome. And then you got to do this Logitech thing last week. What has that been like to see your channel go from, you know, your first days to now, where it's like, oh man, I get to do some cool stuff.
It's so weird. It is
Yeah.
really weird because it's unexpected. Like, and it's when it happens, you kind of like a little bit shocked and taken aback that they invited you, like especially with the Logitech thing and the MJ thing, because like MJ didn't need me there that day, I don't think.
Sure.
Like they would have been fine if I wasn't there. But it was a really fun experience to meet both of them and meet all the people that came along as well.
Yeah.
That was a lot of it, and getting to connect with different parts of the community. And yeah, it was just super fun. And to see, like, people were really excited to meet Paul, people really excited to meet MJ. It was just good to see that energy. It was a
Yeah.
really good energy there. And same with the Logitech thing, the energy was there. There was a lot of like people meeting each other for the first time, you know, content creators and stuff like that. And yeah, it's just good. And I look forward to more of it because, like with this that we're doing now and other podcast series like Baby Seals, it's bringing us all together.
Yeah.
And that can only be a good thing.
Well, that's something that I just when I was coming up with you know, who we wanted to bring on here, I was like, who has a unique perspective and all of this kind of stuff, and I was like, well, Sector 6 has got to be on this somehow. How can we fit him in? I know that we're across seas from each other, but how can we make the timing work and all that stuff? Just because you do bring such a cool energy, and I'm excited to get to that part of the interview for sure. I'm literally every time we do this, I'm always the one holding back, and I'm like, okay, Evan, let's talk about Rebirth now.
let's dip our toes in a little bit. Let's talk a little bit more about like
business.
video games and what you like about them. So
Yeah.
whether it's Rebirth or whether it's other games that you enjoy, what types of games do you gravitate to? What kind of play mechanics and stories do you feel drawn to and really engaged with as we kind of begin to wade into the waters?
Yeah. So that wade into the waters. Nice.
See, that's me.
God, that was
It's a joke since I was born.
Got you.
No, so like when I was younger, there's me pre FF7 and there's me post FF7 because I was always into like platform games, sports games, you know, the generic games that kids play. And then FF7 came along and that just completely shifted everything for me. And it was like, oh, RPGs are a thing. Oh, these games are really good. I can do all these different things and manage all these systems, and they've got a great story alongside it as well. Like, why wouldn't I play this? And that was it. I was just in. But like on top of that, I play a lot of simulation games as well. So like Civilization games, strategy games as well a little bit. It's like your XCOM games and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Just things that you can just dive into the minutiae of managing it and stuff like that. There was a Minecraft phase as well.
Yeah, there always is.
There's always a Minecraft.
That was an
I can
amazing
build
game.
what?
What games? Like I grew up playing a lot of like real-time strategy and simulation games, like the Command and Conquers.
Red Alert 2.
Oh, Red Alert! Oh, that game was
what
so
a game.
great. Like because it had the voice acting and you had the cinematics and it just had
Tim
all
Curry
this.
and everything.
Oh, dude, it was so good. I really.
Hero
liked that one.
reporting. Oh, I love that game.
Yeah, we played a lot of those. You know, the Age of Empires. Are you excited about Civ 7 coming out?
Yeah, 7.
Yes, yes, very excited
Some
about Civ
interesting
7.
changes they've decided.
Yeah, it's going to
Should
be fun to check them out and see what it's all about. Civ 5 is still probably the king for me at the minute.
Really?
Civ 6 was good,
Yeah.
but Civ 5 is probably still the king. And we'll see if 7 can dethrone 5. It looks good. It looks real good.
I think they finally have a little bit of the pressure from some other studios, maybe innovating in the space a little bit, testing out some ideas that they were afraid to put their foot down on. And then now they're like, okay, we've learned the lessons from some of these other games, seen where they've really moved the kind of genre forward.
Yeah, there's a lot of really cool narrative-based simulation games coming up. Like Frostpunk 2 just came out, and that looks so good. The first Frostpunk was brilliant. I can't wait to get into it. It's an interesting space at the minute. There's a lot of new people, and I think that is because game development has become more accessible, just in general over the years.
I was going to ask if you play any of the indie games kind of in that sector. I played one really recently that my brother recommended called Tactical Breach Wizards, which is like a comedic XCOM. Like the story is great, but there's like a rewinding time mechanic. You have to try it out. It's like,
I'll check
18
that
bucks.
out.
Yeah, absolutely. If you like XCOM or any of those tactics style games and you like kind of quippy writing and characters, it's basically like XCOM meets Harry Potter. So like your gun is like a staff that is like an assault staff. Like it's a really fun, like if you played like FTL or Into the Breach or any of those, those are really good. And then I played one called Wandering Village. I don't know if you heard about this one. Sorry, now I'm just talking about indie games.
I need to start searching for more games. It was
treasure trove over here.
What's going on?
Yeah,
Keep going.
Welcome to my territory now, boys. You run a village on the back of a dinosaur that it goes around an apocalyptic wasteland. So basically the world is kind of barren and you have to move your society on this path on this dinosaur, and you encounter these different obstacles, and you have to like send out envoys with your cranes that go off, and the dinosaur has a name and you have to feed him and take care of him. So it's like management.
What is this game called?
It's called Wandering Village.
Right, I need to check that out. First thing I thought of then when you said that was the Discworld books. If you've ever read any Terry Pratchett, yeah. Oh wow, that's
dude,
crazy.
It's great. It's great, and I'm really hoping. Did you ever play the one where you were like a god that made your own creatures? It was called Black and White. Back in the day. I want a remake or a new Black and White game so bad where you could make.
We can't trust Peter Molyneux though. We cannot trust Peter Molyneux. He can't be trusted anymore. Like he just can't. So I don't know. As long as he stays away. Yes.
As long as he stays away.
Fair enough.
I love him. He's made some quality games over the years. He has made some phenomenal games. There was one recently that I've been looking into called Tavern Keeper, which is kind of like a medieval tavern crossed with theme hospital.
Oh, I love that
sort of game. Looks real good.
Good. I'll have to check that one out. So then,
yeah, it's worth a lot.
When you get into the mechanics, you get a lot of that in these Final Fantasy games too. You get some simulation, you get the mini games, you get the battle systems. Is there anything that like really stands out to you as something that these games have done really well that you're just like, I just loved this part of this particular Final Fantasy game, or maybe even something that they've done in the remake or Rebirth that you just said, wow, they really nailed it?
I mean, the mechanics in general, I was always, so here we go. So I'm very much one of those purist FF fans. I'm going to be completely honest with you.
This is a safe place, okay?
Thank you.
Hold on. Wade, make a square of safety.
I'm very much an FF.
This is a safety square. You're in a safety square.
To clarify what you just said, though, for our audience, because we have people in the FF community, but we have people beyond it as well, students of mine. Describe what you mean when you say purist.
So it's a term that seems to get contorted quite a bit on Twitter with people's personal opinions. Basically, there was a shift in the franchise post Final Fantasy X, and it was when Hironobu Sakaguchi left the company, Square merged with Enix, and a lot of things changed a little bit, and they became much more experimental with the gameplay style of the franchise. So, like, all of the earlier games, like 1 through 3, basic turn-based, 4 through 9, ATB, which is a variant of turn-based, FF10, back to the act list and kind of straight-up turn-based, and 10-2 as well.
Yeah.
Then after that, it shifts in a big way. So a purist generally is viewed as someone who preferred that early era, the Sakaguchi era, the 1 through 10. And that doesn't mean they don't necessarily like the newer stuff, but that's kind of the golden age.
Of 1 through 10, do you have a favorite?
I mean, 7.
7, yeah. I mean,
7. Probably
I
because
always
it was my
hesitate to ask
first.
that to a, which one was?
7. So, like, that was my first ever RPG. My first ever Final Fantasy. That was the game that changed me. It literally changed me as a gamer.
Wow.
Yeah, when you say it changed you as a gamer, you're just saying it opened your eyes to what was possible. Did you look for other games like it when you were done and find that it was a little
next
hollow?
was Breath of Fire 3.
Okay.
After that was Star Ocean, the second story.
Oh, you went
yeah.
all
Then
in.
Final Fantasy VIII came along and straight in, and that was it. I was in. Grandia, Alundra, loads of Suikoden 1 and 2, all those old PS1 RPGs. There was a few that I missed. Legend of Dragoon, I missed that. I played that recently
I
on
missed
just
that one too.
stream.
Yeah.
Be prepared if you play it. I'm just going to tell you now, it's not aged well. But
I've
for the time, it was probably phenomenal. But
yeah.
it's not aged the best, in my opinion.
I've
The
heard people clamoring
yeah,
for a remake for that reason.
really needs it.
Yeah.
It would probably be one of the PS1 RPGs that would benefit from a remake the
Yeah.
most, if I'm being completely honest. Because when you play it, you can feel that there's a good game there and a good gameplay system, but it just needs a few tweaks, a little bit of quality of life. The translation is
It's tough.
not it's mid-90s, let's put it that way.
Oh yeah. Well, I think Wade, we always are curious about just your general perspective on kind of remakes and remasters and revisiting some old IPs.
Right.
Wade, is there a specific aspect of kind of revisiting remasters that you would want to ask John here as we kind of start to
Well, you know,
wade a little deeper into
Be doing.
just me into the water. Yeah, I got it. I think when it comes to remakes and remasters, there is a really important conversation that's happening right now because so many of the games of our childhood and adolescence are being remade and remastered, and FF7 Remake has reinterpreted that word in a lot of ways, for good and for bad.
Yeah.
So when you bring up Legend of Dragoon, you specifically mentioned there's some quality of life improvements.
Yeah.
Would you want it to stop there? And what's your kind of philosophy on what it means to remake a game?
It's an interesting one. So it depends what you're going for. If you go in to just produce the best version of that game from the past, then yeah, I'd probably stop short of some of the more sweeping alterations that we've seen in the remake project, shall I say. It'd probably be more about like making sure the mechanics are good, making sure the translation's good, maybe get rid of any bugs that were in the game back in the day. Unless it's something phenomenal that everybody loves, in which case you leave it in. You leave it in. Just yeah, mainly the mechanics and just making the game more palatable for a modern audience, because I will happily sit and play an old PS1 game, no dramas, any day of the week. I'll play SNES games, I don't care, I'll go all the way back.
Yeah.
But if you didn't grow up with it, it's difficult. Or at least I can presume it's difficult to go back and be like fully engaged with games that you might view as dated. You might be enjoying it, but then you're kind of like, oh, it's not as it just
this is
rough around the edges, and
This is a great conversation and a point that you bring up, because a lot of times I'll have discussions with people that say, you wouldn't do this with books. Like, we go back to classic literature and it's not written in today's parlance and all that kind of stuff. So what's the difference when it comes to games, in your opinion? How can something be considered universally a classic and yet still be dated in a way that it may not be accessible to today's audience?
I think it's because, so I view gaming as kind of the pinnacle of entertainment in a lot of ways, because it takes the written form, it takes the visual form, and it takes that experiential form of actually doing a thing and puts it all together into one package. And I think just the limitations of technology at different phases have kind of enforced the fact that we can do it, but we can't really do it as well as we'd like to do it. And like 90s Final Fantasy, like FF7 was the first 3D Final Fantasy, and I think the first 3D game Square Enix did. Squaresoft at that point had done, potentially, with rather than the 2D sprites and the top-down viewpoint, it was a big step for them. And you can already see within, what was it, a year and a half's time to Final Fantasy VIII, the massive steps that they made in their capabilities. And by the time you get to Final Fantasy X on the PS2, it's night and day.
Yeah, and that's when people really started wanting that remake, because you see all of these characters in 10. It's like, oh my gosh, what if Cloud? What if Aerith?
What if 7 looked like this?
What if
And
7?
It was never 8 and 9 either, which was weird.
Which is really strange, because to me, 7, even with its graphical anomalies, I think it ages better from an art style than 8 does.
Stylistically,
Because
yes.
8 is very realistic. And you've got this classic meme, Evan, I don't know if you've seen this one, but you got this classic meme of Squall, the main character, and somebody says, "You're the best looking guy here." And it's just this like deformed, mutilated, pixelated face.
Actually, a channel point redemption on my Twitch channel. People can redeem it. Best looking guy here, and it just pixelates my webcam completely. You can't see me.
That's brilliant. That's brilliant. I'm not an IT guy, so I can't do cool things like that, but that's amazing. Like, that's a really curious thing. We weren't clamoring for an 8 or a 9 remake, but 7, we kind of are. And so, kind of shifting over to 7 at this point. Well, actually, I have one other question.
Never mind then. Don't time out.
I have one other question. There is a rumor that there's going to be a Final Fantasy 9 remake. Okay, we've heard it for a year. I have doubts as to whether or not it's going to exist. Literally, after we are recording, there is a PlayStation State of Play, and there's all kinds of rumors that it's already going to be announced there. May not. Let's say it is true. What kind of remake would you want for Final Fantasy 9?
So, I'm kind of going back to the point from a second ago. With remake, it's a different kind of remake, like you said. It's redefining that term. It's a requel, as I believe it was Blitz first said.
Okay.
Because you've got aspects of remake in it, but then you've got aspects of additional stuff that they've put in, things that we get from the compilation. But then there's a layer on top of that where you've got Sephiroth, who kind of knows things that he shouldn't know, and Aerith, who kind of knows things, and all this talk of changing fate and destiny. So the layers of it, like one layer's a remake, another layer's an expanded remake, and another layer's a sequel, and it feels different to anything else. With 9, don't think that plays. I think it needs to be as close to 9 as possible. Because for me, of the 3 PlayStation Final Fantasies, 9 runs the worst. Like, the frame rate is dreadful. That 5-second intro into every combat encounter really adds
more than
up.
5 seconds, man.
Yeah, it adds
It's
up
like an
so
eternity.
much. It's so bad. But the little things like that, the quality of life stuff, the frame rate, all of those kind of things really need addressing with 9. With 8, the remaster kind of fixes a lot of the issues with 8, I think, because they redo some of the models, and visually it's pretty sketchy still in some points, but in general it plays okay. The combat's snappy, it's quick, you get into the next fight nice and quickly. Also, they need to fix Tetramaster if they do FF9.
Okay. What was the problem with Tetramaster in your opinion? That's the card game, everybody?
It's the RNG. So
the RNG,
triple triad, the card is the card, the number is the number. The board can have an effect on that, but it's transparent with what that effect is. In Tetramaster, the numbers are a range. So you could get anything. You could have a stronger card by multiple levels and still lose when you put the card down, and that just feels bad. Like, I have done everything right, and I've lost.
Yeah, I hate that.
Maybe
I didn't spend a lot of
lesson
time.
The entire game. You can do everything right.
Maybe.
And still lose.
Oh, Vivi.
Honestly, Vivi, yeah, seriously.
I mean, it's consistent. Listen, that's consistent.
You know what?
And
It just made me
that's life,
absolutely
kids.
look at that completely differently now.
It's a meta
I'm going to have an
game, a meta
existential
commentary.
crisis. Yeah, I'm going to go and have an existential crisis after that.
Evan, I don't even know if you've played Final Fantasy 9, but you just hit the nail on the head. That's beautiful.
Time for the minigame stretch break.
It sure is.
Okay, everybody, it's that time in the episode for our mini game stretch break where we get to know each other a little bit better. We're here with Sector 6, aka John. Let's get a little stretch in, everybody. Wherever you find yourself, listener.
Actual stretch.
Yeah. Just take a minute. Be kind to your body. You're probably staring at the screen or something too
You've got to be
long.
careful when you're doing this with people that are in the late 30s, like most Final Fantasy 7 fans. They might stretch and slip a disc or something.
Yeah,
And just,
I'm telling you.
Don't slip a disc. But whatever it is.
should hear the noises I make when I stand up.
whatever it is that's got your attention that you're worrying about, it's probably not quite as big a deal. You're going to find some time. So to help you relax and really get in the sharing mood for our mini game stretch break, we're going to hit that theme music. 3, 2, 1. Bum, bum, bum,
No one told me about this.
Surprise!
So, ladies and gentlemen, this is the time of the episode where we get to know each other a little bit better. I have our bingo wheel of vulnerability. Wade has our question cards for today. What do we have today, Wade?
Today we are using Chuck Klosterman's Hypotheticals, 50 questions for insane conversations.
Wow, 50
That's
questions
amazing.
that are blurred by the AI.
The AI blurred it.
It's okay. He's going to be in a tiny little window. That's where we keep him anyways. You can't let him have too big of a pen because he'll take over the whole thing. So that's right. Digital Wade is like a fish, and this is like an aquarium, everybody. So I have the bingo wheel of vulnerability. We have numbers 1 through 50. Listener, you guys are going to get to pick a number, which will be fun. So if you get it right, let us know in the comments. But John, as our guest, you get to pick the first number, 1 through 50. Which would you like?
37.
37. Wade, what do you want?
40.
Great. I'll take 22. John, tell me when.
Danger. Okay.
37, 40, and 22.
When? 7 seconds till the end. You got to count
Oh,
it
look
All
at
right,
you.
7 seconds till the end. The ball is red. And here we go. 20. The number is
20.
20.
Oh, okay.
Oh, I was too off. Dang.
out. So close.
So close.
20. Okay. So the topic of this question, because it could literally be anything, is body versus mind. Okay.
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 It's quite a setup. So hold on to your hat. You are given a choice between 2 rewards. The first reward is to be twice as intelligent as you are now. You will be able to read twice as fast, remember twice as much, and the size of your vocabulary will double. And you'll be able to solve intellectual problems with twice your current aptitude. The second reward is that you will never, ever feel sick again, even when you are, and you can always be whatever weight you want, regardless of what you eat and how little you exercise. You can simply imagine the body you would like to have, and that is the weight you will magically become. Which reward do you choose?
Can I ask some clarifying questions? And we're going to ask and why, right? Like that'll be.
Yeah, of course, and why, yeah.
So is it just body image or is it actual health as well? Like, do I get the cardiovascular benefits to that? Or like, for the sake of the question.
Yeah, is it cosmetic or does it go deeper? And can I say, oh, my heart's feeling a bit dodgy?
Yeah.
Refreshed.
Like,
So I think that everything that you would need in order for you to have your ideal body, like all of your biological processes are going to match that. So your blood pressure, your heart rate, all of that kind of stuff is going to match your ideal body.
age normally with
Yeah.
Like you'd be the best version
like
of
you
yourself.
can't just be
at that
Yeah,
age. Okay.
yeah.
And then does this apply to let's say I overate and like I was gonna feel bad because I overate, or maybe John and I go out to the pub and there's a little indulgence there.
Okay.
Am I never going to feel any ill effects from ingestion?
My assumption is that you will never again feel sick, even when you are.
So
no consequences of overindulgence.
That's like a doubling
whether
of
eating or
intelligence
drinking.
anyways.
It's a tough one.
Double the intelligence. Man, think of what you could do.
I know.
I'm kind of locked in.
All right.
You're
if
locked in.
Go ahead.
I'm locked
Let's let
in.
him go.
I'm going for the intelligence, because that's the thing that sets us aside from every other living creature on the planet, realistically, that intelligence that we have. So if you imagine if I could double my capacity for that intelligence, maybe I could engineer all of the other things that I'm not necessarily, the other side of it. Maybe I can make that happen with, it's got to be the intelligence. Think of all the random obscure facts that you'd be able to remember as well. You'd never be boring. You'd never be boring.
Oh, see, here's my concern. I
Video
think
creation would be easier.
maybe. See, I think there is a line of unrelatable that you would get to depending on like levels of intelligence. I'm gonna take the
Video
physical,
success, maybe.
right. I'm gonna take the physical health and take the longevity angle, where I think that I'm improving my health, therefore the quality of life over time will be greater. And I think my ability socially to be more engaged, have better social stamina, because networking and networks are a large part of success for me. So if I can team up with one of you brainiacs and then I have the social battery, we're in great shape.
Both worlds.
Not knowing what
Dream team.
picked. Yeah, there we go. So I think that's gonna be my through line to be a little
Man. Both are such great answers. And like I'm really torn on this one. Because like as much as I want double the intelligence, like there's also this, like the amount of time that I spend to meal prepping and like exercising in my life, like I would get so much of my life back. Like I feel like a slave to the machine of fitness, and body standards, and like to just like completely destroy my body dysmorphia in one fell swoop. That'd be amazing.
Just let go. Don't worry about it. Just let go. Do what I've done. Like you get closer to 40, and I found I've just let go.
My brother, I have already passed the 40 mark. So like,
you're doing. There we go. There's the advertisement. Don't listen to me. Eat healthy, exercise, do all the things because Jesus Christ.
In 2 weeks, brother, so.
Oh my gosh.
But so that becomes more of a thing. But here, I think this is where I'm going to land on it.
You must choose.
I know.
You must choose.
I think I'm going to go with double the intelligence, and here's why. It's not really about the intelligence part. I love the time that I spend processing things in the gym.
Yeah.
And like that hour or 2 hours that I spend exercising is a discipline thing, and it really helps me. I have crafted some great videos while I was just doing my workout or on a run or something like that. So to have double the mental power to go into my workout or long run or something like that two birds, one stone. So that's
you're doing both.
Yeah. I'm doing both.
Why not do both? Why not do both?
Exactly.
Well,
I love that. So
listener, viewer, what would it be for you? Whether you're like Wade and you're already 95% towards the body that you want, so you might as well pick the other
not.
One, or whether you're like the two slugs here.
The thing for me is, like, as I've got older, my hairline has just betrayed me gradually, and I
know.
Super long, luscious locks. I had like metalhead
to wear
hair.
hats all the time.
Yeah, it's getting a bit much, man. So because of that, I've just kind of gone, well, if my hair's gone, then I've lost all my power, obviously, Samson.
So, yes, of course.
That's the end of it. That's it.
That would be an interesting question. Mind, body, or hair? What is your dream?
Hair, give it back immediately.
Oh, well, money can buy hair these days, so...
You're not far from Turkey. I hear they do good ones.
Oh, whoa. Ooh. No, it's not even the hair. The hair's bad, but when you get the turkey teeth done, like, I drink coffee, I've smoked, I've stained my teeth to oblivion. I'm fine with it.
Fair.
Accept it.
Accepting fate, like Cloud, you know? Do we defy it?
I am not Zack.
I'm not Zack. Great hair, that Zack.
Oh, yes. They all have great hair. I mean, I think that's the one thing that they all have in common. Well, for those of you who are out there, I hope that you've enjoyed your stretch break. Everybody, let's get a little more of a stretch here while we kind of re-engage. And what is it for you? You know, you're gonna buff your brain or you're gonna buff your body. So you must choose. You must choose.
Can't do both.
You must choose. Let's get back to that episode. Thanks, everybody.
All right, so it's time. Let's talk about some Rebirth.
Those eyes go really wide.
Right? And we
not again. God, I'm sick of it.
I bet you are. So everybody, if you have not checked out the playthrough that Sector 6 has been doing, and it's not really a playthrough, it is a chapter by chapter full analysis. It's more than a playthrough. You're going through every chapter and really analyzing. And, we do lecture plays on my channel. You're doing like almost like a documentary of every single chapter. And it is so compelling. I'll admit, I have not watched all of them. I think you just put out chapter 14s
Just finished
in the
yesterday.
last today. Oh
Yeah,
man.
yeah. Last night I put chapter 14 up. I
So
was
it's
adamant
fresh.
I was finishing it.
How
Like,
are
it was
you
like, no, it's done.
How are you getting them so condensed and tight?
Seriously.
How is that possible?
With great difficulty, in fact.
I bet you are.
Because we just
Like-
pull the ripcord. We're like, it's 2 hours. Have
Let's
fun.
go.
So initially it was pretty easy in the earlier chapters because like a lot of it is set in the scene and it's things that pay off much later on in the game. But when you get into like I'd say from chapter 10 onwards, it's become much more difficult. And it's 50 minutes, 55 minutes, an hour and 10 minutes. And then this one was an hour and 35 minutes for chapter 14. Arguably a chapter where you do the least, but the most happens.
Yeah, the implications are big. Yeah.
It's crazy. Because all you do is a boss rush, really.
Yeah.
You go in, do a boss rush. Oh, cutscenes. Ah.
And of course, from your analytical standpoint, each one of those boss rushes means something new. Every stage of that boss is like, so what does this imply for what's happening in the world?
What are the characters saying mid-fight as well?
What are they fighting? Yeah, it's just so interesting. So the question I've been dying to ask you, and I'm so excited that you are done with it and have published it all, because now I hope you'll be able to speak freely about this.
Oh, 100%.
What was it about this project that helped you see things in a new light, understand the story better? What did you notice in this playthrough and project that you didn't the first time around?
With the first playthrough, like I said, I did it on stream, and very much with the game, there's so much content in there. There are so many threads and moments that it's pretty much impossible to get to the end of a full playthrough and remember everything that went on, because there'll be things that happened in chapter 3 that you have no context of them being important. And then when the thing that they relate to happens in, say, chapter 11, you don't necessarily remember that thing. You're just like, oh yeah, this was a thing, I think. But anyway, what's going on? So it's nice. The reason why I did it was initially, entirely selfish, I think, because it was for me to consolidate my knowledge of Rebirth and make sure that I had everything in order, everything in my mind. I've not missed anything, and I probably have missed some things. Obviously, no one's perfect. There'll definitely be connections that I've missed.
Sure.
But in general, it was just finding a lot of the connections and the correlations between certain characters and things like that. Probably the most interesting tidbit that I've picked up, like Easter egg almost, and it may not even be an Easter egg, was the Roche thing that I posted about the other week.
Yeah, that was amazing. Could you explain that for everybody just as a catch up? I thought it was wildly fascinating.
Crazy. So the Roche limit in like space and spacey sky stuff terms is it's the range where a body, when it gets too close to another body, it will be broken apart by the gravitational forces of the larger body. And it kind of correlates with Roche. He's pretty weak in general, and he's not really connected to the whole Genova thing fully. But then as the story progresses, he becomes closer to Genova and closer to Genova, and we just see him get torn apart. And by the end of the game, in the final chapter, he's pretty much catatonic in the back of a helicopter, just staring into space. And I think I don't know if it's definitely that, but I think it's really interesting if that is the inspiration for Roche's name, that Roche limit that exists, where like a celestial body will just destroy itself or be destroyed by gravitational forces. It's crazy.
And it really frames this idea of Roche being drawn to Cloud and wanting to compete with Cloud, and yet being broken down by that. And then with the injection later on, and to again fall apart and break, and then he's almost catatonic, right? Yeah. That was such a wildly compelling thing. How did you come up with that? Like, what was the origin story of it?
A commenter just came in and said, I don't know if you've heard of the Roche limit. And I'm quite into like physics and space and things like that in general, at a casual level, obviously. But I'm quite into it. So I knew what the Roche limit was, but I'd never And the
Yeah.
commenter just did that for me, and I was like, "Oh my god, you legend! Make a video now!"
Right. Shout out to the comment section. A lot of times
Shout out.
the comment section gives us a lot of bad
Yeah.
stuff, and there's bad
They get a
negative
bad
stories,
rap.
but this was great. This was awesome.
great.
So,
And this is
loved it.
something that I really enjoy with the series that I've done, because it has kind of fostered and generated that type of conversation, like we were saying earlier, that conversational style. I think it's given people more freedom and more willingness to just jump into the comments and say what they think. And plus, some of my takes are a little contentious, and sometimes people want to be like, "Excuse me, no," and I'm fine with that as well. I'm into it.
Well, how do you keep all those thoughts organized when you're doing those playthroughs? Like you could say, okay, this seems like a theme. Do you just put a pin in it? Are you just keeping it in your head? Like as you go from chapter 1 through 14 and something sticks out to you in chapter 3 and it's a callback in chapter 13, that's just all cataloged in your mind? Do you have a notebook? Do you have a bunch of yarn and pins all over the wall? What's going on here?
All Charlie mode, yeah.
Yeah.
Pepe Sylvia.
Doesn't exist.
It's Pepe Sylvia.
Oh, I love it. Kind of. I like bullet pointing things at the minute. So like when I'm going through the video, if I notice something, I'll just turn bam, 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 bullet point, carry on playing, bullet point. And then when I'm recording the video, I don't really script it at that point. I'll watch it back with my bullet points open in Audacity and just record and just talk.
That is interesting.
That's pretty much the approach I've taken with this series. The first one or two, I scripted a little bit heavier, and again, I got that feeling like, no, I can do this better. I can make this a little bit more casual, a little bit more chill, rather than make it like I'm talking at people more. Do you know what I mean? I want it to be like that commenter said, we're having a conversation.
Yeah,
That's
that pacing
brilliant.
makes a lot of sense too, because you're pretty good at then adapting kind of your extemporaneous speaking as you play and do the video.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. Sorry.
It's a lot of pausing, say thing, play. Pause, say thing. It's a lot of that.
That's a great like pacing.
But it lets me make
tactic, too.
sure I'm hitting as many of the points as I can.
So when it comes to your playthrough, again, did anything surprise you? And be specific with this. I'd love to know beats that really were like, oh my gosh, you mentioned earlier something in a later chapter, recontextualizing something in an earlier chapter. What were those specific moments for you?
Oh, this is where it gets tough now, because like I say, a lot of it is just kind of swimming around.
Yeah.
I'd say a lot of the Zack stuff and the way that it relates to the way the world works and stuff like that, because earlier on in the game, you're kind of focusing on the characters that Zack's interacting with and the world that he's in. But by the time you get to the end of the game, it's less about that, and it's more about Zack's will and Zack's choices and Zack's kind of desire to continue, essentially. And we see all these different versions of Zack going off in different directions to try and pursue that, and we end up with one that eventually does. And it's just kind of interesting seeing the world that we thought was going to be such a big thing not really be that big of a thing. The worlds as a concept are a big thing, but that Terrier timeline ended up really amounting to pretty much nothing.
Because were you disappointed by that?
Not really, because I was very much in the multiverse camp. Post remake, I was 100% in, like, yeah, this is different threads of existence, different threads of possibilities. I was very much of the mindset, and kind of pretty much still am, that this is a Sephiroth from post Advent Children, maybe post Dirge, I don't know. But one of the things that the playthrough kind of illuminated to me is we get a lot of this talk in that ending scene about time, and about, oh, if only we had more time, if only there was more time for us to do things. And I kind of feel like that's what Sephiroth's shooting for, more time. Like, he's not been able to fulfill his goal in that OG thread of existence. So what he's done is he's tried to go back in time and inadvertently created this branch, which is the remake world. So I don't even think the remake is in the same world as the OG. I think they're separate. And I don't know where that break is. I get the feeling that they're going to use Ever Crisis to kind of point us in that direction, because we're getting a lot of young Sephiroth and exploratory stuff about Sephiroth, and I think he's obviously got all the answers at this point.
Ever Crisis, for those that are watching, is the mobile game, and it is another retelling of.
Yeah.
It's not just the original game, because
No,
it's
it's
got
a
some added
mix.
stuff. It's
Yeah.
a mix, but it also doesn't have whispers, and so it's not necessarily a remake of remake.
It's probably the remake that we would have got if it was just going to be a straight up remake in my
Remake,
mind.
right?
Yeah. Without all of these additional
Right.
meta components, for want of a better terminology, that are going on with the story. Like
Yeah.
the whispers represent people who want the remake to stay
Yeah.
the same and things like that. All of those meta representations and the sequel aspect of it, I think you take all them away and you've pretty much got the Ever Crisis version of Final Fantasy VII.
So just to clear it up, for you, what I'm hearing is the remake trilogy doesn't necessarily exist in the same, I guess, linearity as the OG, but it
But
doesn't
it's connected.
replace or undo it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I feel
okay,
like it's all
that's important.
connected. Yeah. So
You used the
I
word
don't-
requel earlier, which is
Yeah.
like remake and sequel all
It's a
together
bit
in
of
one.
both.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's a
there's
little bit of both.
layers of it. Yeah. And
It's a great
depending on what you
distinction.
go into it looking for, I think Blitz said it first. I'm certain
Yeah,
Blitz said it first. I'm
we-
sure he did.
Cheers to Blitz.
Hey,
We
Good
love
on you,
that.
Blitz.
To Blitz.
But it fit in my mind. It fit because it is kind of doing both. And there was an interview done recently by Tetsuya Nomura. I don't know if you've seen it, but it was in Young Jump magazine. It's
I haven't
part
read the
of
whole
their-
thing. No.
Real
So-
quick, who is that individual?
Tetsuya Nomura, he was the original character designer on Final Fantasy VII, and I believe in Remake Rebirth, he was director of Remake, and now
And
he's
then
moved up
creative.
a level to more overseeing the project and kind of
Great.
left it in Hamaguchi's hand for Rebirth. I believe that's the structure.
Yeah, a
And-
creative director of some kind.
Yeah, that's it. He's kind of watching over it, but I think he's got Kingdom Hearts 4 looming on the
think that's it.
horizon. Yeah.
Yeah.
So he's probably a bit busy with that. But the interview where he talks about that scene in the live stream where Sephiroth shows Cloud the nature of the worlds, and he says really interestingly that he basically alludes to the fact that these images that we're seeing are different parts of the compilation, but that they're not all specifically in the same world. So, for example, Last Order has a completely different retelling of the Nibelheim incident. That's not non-canon. That's a different world.
Okay, now
That
Last
feels
Order,
like what he's suggesting.
that is
It's like an anime. It's like a short form anime that details some stuff about the Turks and the Nibelheim incident. It's weird.
well, there's so many different parts of the compilation. Evan, I'm going to toss it to you in just a second, but just to follow up on this,
Yeah.
so many parts of the compilation that are just like most people wouldn't really hear of these, but FF7 superfans really do. And I consider myself one of these, even though I haven't experienced all of it. But you've got The Last Order, which is this kind of anime prequel, Nibelheim retelling incident. Then you've got Before Crisis, which, if I remember correctly, it was a flip phone mobile game that was only in Japan or something like that. And it tells the story of the Turks or something.
Yeah, so it goes into a load of incidents around the Turks.
Yeah.
I think it details all the stuff with Calm being destroyed and then rebuilt, because Calm was destroyed in a similar way to Nibelheim, and then it's kind of like a puppet town. It focuses on a few characters that we don't really know. You get some Red 13 backstory in there. You meet his mate, and that kind of explains away the ending of Final Fantasy VII, where Red 13 has children.
Okay, that one's new to me. I'd not heard that one.
There's lots of stuff in it, and they are going to be bringing it over into Ever Crisis, and that's going to. I've not played it. I've just read about it, so my knowledge on it isn't the best. Because again, I need to get hands on with something.
Narratively, in this interview, and Evan, this is for you as well as our audience as well. In this interview, Nomura basically says all of these worlds that you're seeing are all of these different aspects.
Could be these different aspects,
could be, and they exist as much as you want them to.
Okay, I have more of a meta question than just it's you know it's
a way to get around that pesky canonicity question.
Yes, right.
I have a question that continues us on in the conversation, but I can't get around this. Do you guys? I'm just gonna ask it. Do you like having this much of this story fragmented over all these different products? Like, is that in some ways more fun because it creates more space and mystery for you guys to enjoy it? Or is it like, oh yeah, well, that on a Gashapon machine in Tokyo outside of the Square Enix headquarters, if you went in and put in an American quarter, then you got a ball that came out, and when you opened it up, that's called Skeever Crisis. And then there's also this other thing that you have here, and that's Scourge of Cerberus, which is different than Dirge of Cerberus. And so depending on whether you went there during the lunar equinox or whether the yen was strong against the American dollar, then that determined which of these characters were coming in, and it determines if Genova came out or if Sephiroth came out, and and then he instead of saying mom, he went dad, and only 5 people in the world got to experience that, and they're all sworn to secrecy. Like, that's what it feels like to me a lot of the time when we go into some of this minutia. So how
you've just nearly broken me.
Well, I'm going to let you go first. What
like
is your
it?
take on this? Do you like this storytelling methodology? Or?
Not really. Right. So being brutally honest, I enjoyed the compilation, but I disregarded it.
Fair.
For the most part. For me, Final Fantasy VII was Final Fantasy VII. The compilation was a separate entity, and it was fun, nice little dalliance, but the OG was the thing. And if anything in the compilation contradicted the OG, it'd be like, oh, well, you're wrong, OG. But now, the remake project has kind of started weaving the compilation in and making it a little bit more palatable and making it more connected and making it feel the same, because Crisis Core does not feel the same as Final Fantasy VII. Narratively, it's similar. It has aspects that are similar, but gameplay completely different. Some of the characters aren't the same as they were in the OG, and it just feels weird. Dirge of Cerberus, what? Like, I was just, I mean, I played it, it was okay, but it doesn't feel like FF7 until that final cutscene where everyone comes together and deals with Omega. It just doesn't feel FF7 to me up till that point. Advent Children's probably the most coherent. Wow, I can't believe I just said those words.
Wow, we're clipping that, by the way. It's sending it to the internet.
It feels the closest to the spirit of FF7 to me. It's a continuation narrative. Like, I think it benefits from the fact it doesn't have a completely different gameplay style because it's not a game, so that aspect doesn't come into it. I think that's probably where it benefits from it the most. But the remake project is definitely doing a lot of good work, at least bringing these aspects together and making them, like I say, just more palatable in general. But
Listen, I kind of agree with you in that respect. And, before I was known for anything regarding Final Fantasy VII, like Final Fantasy 15 is my baby. And I tell my classes, I teach classes at Bama about Final Fantasy 15 and history and things like that. What I tell students is this is a great story told in the worst way possible. And I've done the hard work. And I'm going to explain it to you in the most sensical way possible, right? And it's true because there's an anime and there's a prequel script that you have to read.
Was so good.
Kingsglaive, the movie,
good.
And
I enjoyed that so much.
And as wonderful
should
as
have been in the
is,
game though, shouldn't it?
It should have been in the game, right? And so, like, it's sometimes. And I had a student that said, "Is it too much to ask to just have a game?" And to be able to enjoy it beginning to end. And I'm like, yes, it is too much to ask. Thank you for asking, though.
Because these companies now, at a corporate level, dictate, like, oh, well, we need a strategy so that we can expand this game out into other franchises and maximize profit. And we've got to do it on this platform and in this format. And it's one of the curses of
it also gives us some really big budgets for some things that would have never gotten done before. It's such
true.
It's a double-edged sword
because you never get Rebirth ever in a million years without this gigantic boom in the budgets for some of these games. It just would never exist. Yeah. But at the same time, then we're sitting here playing a mobile game to try and figure out what happens to our favorite characters.
Ooh.
I have a
that's
question to get
what's
us back on
frustrating.
track.
No. This is Evan. This is a really, really great question. Because it goes into this role of storytelling and how much heavy lifting is too much heavy lifting for the viewer, for the player. And are we beginning to get into that? Where I mean, I had somebody say to me, if you haven't played the original game, you couldn't possibly understand a remake. And then I've got freshmen in college that had just started in remake. They weren't even a thought when the original game came out.
Wow.
And they're starting with this. And it's really interesting because I mean, it's totally unofficial research, but they're saying, I think I understand what's going on, but I do have questions about this guy at the end of remake, Zack. It's like, where did he come from? And it's an interesting sort of thing because they aren't saying, well, the game is, I don't understand anything about the game. It's like, I wonder how he's going to play in part 2. And then they play Rebirth and it's like, ooh, I wonder what. So it's a really interesting narrative thing.
Yeah.
The tension that I have as somebody that loves the original game, I'm like, oh man, I really hope everybody's picking up on these things. But normal people are just like, oh, it's a fun mystery.
Fun, having a good time. Woo!
So get us back on track, Evan. I'd love that.
Well, John, you talked about
Rabbit holes. I'm always ready for them.
We love them. No, they're great.
I love them.
You talked about one of your favorite things that stuck out to you was Zack, and kind of you said that Zack and the way that the world works. And you said, let me know if I'm getting this right or wrong, that Zack's will and how it kind of impacts his fate and what that says about how the worlds work and how we can understand some of this game. I wonder if you could talk a little bit more about what you mean by how the worlds work and what leads you to have those kind of conclusions based on the telling of his story. And if I misrepresented some of those kind of thoughts, feel free to let me know, and I'll sign off.
See ya.
Bye.
No, with Zack, prior to Final Fantasy VII Rebirth coming out, the devs told us repeatedly, Zack is going to be used to explore the nature of the world of Final Fantasy VII. I believe that was the terminology that they used. And it's quite interesting because the world seemed to be shaped in a lot of ways by people's desires and the things that they want. And especially with Zack in the latter stages of the game, he wants to save Cloud, but he also wants to save Biggs and he wants to protect Biggs. So when he makes that choice to go and save Cloud, that will, that desire, that almost need to be a hero and save Biggs, I feel that's what manifests and causes that secondary world to spawn where we see Biggs. And it's got very little energy. There's no Mako in the reactor or anything like that. And I think signs like that are very indicative of the state of the world and what it's in. And maybe it's because it was just a fleeting thing from Zack, so therefore there wasn't too much put into it, and it just ended up being, okay, go save Zack, your fate's going to catch up with you. Okay, go to the Shinra building and save Cloud, your fate is going to catch up with you. But then that third version of Zack at the church, and I don't know if it's Sephiroth that causes it, because his fate doesn't catch up with him. He essentially escapes it, and he's then just kind of hovering in this space between the worlds. And it's weird how that drive and that determination is seemingly what lets him keep on progressing between worlds. We see him find Cloud, and he fights with Cloud, and he gets pushed out again. And obviously Aerith's helping as well. But it's that outlook of Zack, and right at the very end of the game, where he says worlds can be torn apart, but what's to say that they can't find each other again? He's still got that positive outlook, and I just feel like that carries him so much. And with the dev saying that these hopes and dreams almost could be what shapes the worlds that we see in Rebirth, it kind of leaves me with a lot of space to thought, and there's a lot more that I need to think on it, obviously, but I don't know, it's interesting the way they made us focus on Zack and how he would show us how things work. And the question then becomes, is he still going to be doing that in part 3? Or is there going to be a different facet? Or are they going to go a different route with it? Because like the church that he lands in, the flowers are all blooming. We don't know which church that is that he's landed in. Is it a new world? Is it the remake world? Is it the OG world? I doubt it's the OG world, but it could very much be that Beagle timeline that everyone already exists in. And then that shows a pathway for people to return for rabbit holes. But Zack's going to be integral. And Zack's definitely going to be one of the core things in this, like I say, this meta layer of the story that's more like a sequel than a remake.
Wait, he mentioned something that I think you might need to help me clarify the right question to ask. But
Sure.
he mentioned something. I'm talking about him like he's not here. He mentioned we mentioned this idea that there wasn't a lot of Mako in the reactor in Biggs's world, and you ascribed that to some sort of like the permanence or the energy or the state of the world. I hadn't heard much spoken about it having any indicator of a strength of a world or anything like that. So it really sparked my curiosity. What question am I trying to ask here, Wade?
I think you just asked it.
I think that's it. And so, yeah, go for it.
No, genuinely, I think you just asked it because it's... So Sephiroth talks about the worlds, some of them live longer and endure, while others literally just flash into existence and go away. And that path closes itself off. But others endure further. And this is my headcanon viewpoint on it. But each time that we've seen a world that's close to destruction, there's been no Mako. The plants have been dying. Maybe one plant's still alive, but other than that, everything's kind of dead. People are really depressed, and maybe not depressed, but they know the end's coming. They can feel it. Yeah. And maybe that is to do with a lack of the spiritual energy that that world may have initially had. Maybe the world being in existence drains and uses that energy potentially. But it's very much a me thing, that, I think. It's very much a headcanon-y me thing.
You know, something that you said earlier in the interview, in our discussion, you said, we are our experiences. And that's such a compelling phrase that I need to unpack for myself, and the things that have made me, and all that kind of stuff. But if you take it to this particular scene, and if you believe that the live stream is to some degree the memories, the dreams, and the hopes of every person that's ever lived and ever will live, every being, right, that will return to the planet. If that has been sapped and sucked dry, to some degree, a people without a past really don't have much of a future because they don't have much experience to draw on. I wonder if that really does play into the perceptions of everyone. It's like we're resigned to this fate because we don't have this collective memory of the planet. So what are we going to? It's
what
just
the end. Exactly. Whereas Zack is the flip of that.
Yeah.
And he's pushing forward. He's like, no, I am going to take control. I am in charge. And it's a different view and a different outlook to seemingly what everybody else had in that world. And it makes me think that that world was formed from Zack's hopes and dreams. He didn't want to die in that moment at the end of Crisis Core, and that world was forged. I don't think that was all there is to it, because obviously Aerith and Sephiroth have had their fingers in those pies, messing around. But I feel like it was a big facet of it. And there's a lot of other weird things like that. Like in the dream scene where Cloud and Aerith, you know, the dream date at the very end, there's a point in that where Aerith's acting very much like Marlene. You know, where she kind of stomps her feet and pulls that face, the exact same face that we saw in Remake. And have Marlene's
what do you make of that?
hopes
That's
and dreams
never
been used to form it? Well, this is it. Have Marlene's... There's a lot of weird theories about Marlene over the years, that she's an ancient, etc., things like that. I don't particularly buy into that. I have my own weird theory about that sort of stuff. I feel like Cetran DNA has just disseminated throughout the population of Gaia over the course of thousands of years. Some people may get lucky or unlucky, depending on how you look at it. And maybe they're more able with materia. Maybe they're more able with a weapon. Maybe they're more in tune with the planet. And maybe Marlene's just one of those people that's more in tune with the planet. And that's why she has that reaction. Same with Red 13. When Aerith reaches out and makes contact with them in Remake, that connection happens. Whereas with others, it doesn't really happen. You don't see memories get pushed to Tifa or to Barrett or even to Cloud when they make contact with each other. But Red 13, who's definitely got that grounding and connection with the planet from being from Cosmo Canyon and all the study of planetology, and then maybe Marlene, who people have thought weird sus things about for years, like, is she a Cetra? What is she? Maybe that's what it is. Maybe it's just some people are just naturally predisposed. People can do stuff. Some people can just do stuff. That's pretty
People-
much the gist of it. That's pretty much the gist of it.
Can we please title this episode "Some People Can Just Do Stuff"?
I love that.
Very sarcastic. I love it.
You know,
I got him.
that's good. That's good.
It's good. It's good.
You know, I've never really thought about this with respect to Zach and certainly with Marlene, but there does seem to be almost agents of, gosh, I sound like a Final Fantasy game right now. There seem to be agents of fate, right?
Yes.
Right? Who are able to enact their will. And maybe that's those that can see the whispers. You know, it's the party
Well, it
members,
was
it's
said in
Rufus.
remake that those people that are important to the fate and destiny of the planet will probably be able to perceive them, and Rufus can see them. Zack
Yeah.
can perceive them at this point, I think.
Yeah.
I'm not too sure, actually.
Yeah, so it's kind of interesting to think about this. And so, in a world where there is no live stream or memory or future for that matter, you have these people that continue to be agents of that live stream, and they
Yeah.
are able to enact that will and to change the course of things. You know, Zach chooses one tunnel instead of the other, and the other is flooded with light, creating this rift in the world. I'd never put together the idea of Marlene's dreams or hopes, maybe even manifesting in Aerith's sort of thing. That's a
Behaviors.
really
Yeah.
interesting
Because it's a different world.
insight. My
The
goodness.
world has changed at that point. So we're not in the Terrier timeline anymore. We're in, I think they called it the Chihuahua timeline.
Chihuahua,
It's
like
ludicrous.
I
Yeah, the
don't
black
know.
and white one.
I've
Yeah.
never seen a Chihuahua that looked like that, but hey, you know,
I think they reclassified it at a
I
later
have no
date, but I
idea.
can't remember. But we've
That's
changed
not my
world
experience. We are
No.
our experiences. That's not my.
there. No.
I don't
That's
know.
not my Chihuahua.
Well, there's
Not
this
my
interesting thing in in
But
one
it's
of
like
my,
we're in that other world, and
Yeah.
Marlene isn't there, Elmira isn't there, Zack
Hmm.
isn't there. Just all of the people that are important to this set piece that Aerith wants to put in front of Cloud.
Oh.
Because that's pretty much what it is. It's Aerith having that moment with Cloud before
Yeah.
the thing
before Sephiroth shows up, and yeah,
ruins everything.
and ruins everything. This is so fascinating. Zach, as the one that helps us understand and explain this concept of worlds, is there anything that you could tell us from saying, okay, what are these worlds? Do you believe that they're part of the live stream? Is it something new going on? What would you describe these worlds as based on your knowledge of Zach?
It's definitely something within the live stream, I would say. This is definitely all going on within the closed system that is Gaia, the planet.
Okay.
And I would even argue that the OG world is probably just one of these worlds within the planet.
Okay.
I'm not 100% on that. It kind of feels like it would be, though, unless it is literally just the one above everything else. And that feels a little bit odd. But then again, I suppose if you have this differentiation and this split between the physical world and this dream world of the live stream, then it potentially becomes to, it comes to make much more sense then to have that one world above and the rest existing below. But it's interesting the way that it seems like things can happen between the worlds. That's what's interesting, because if the remake world is the OG world, and I'm wrong on that front, then we've seen things going into the live stream and coming back from the live stream, like the white materia transfers from the live stream where it should be non-corporeal at that point, but then it comes back and it is. And there's explanations that need to be made there. It's kind of what makes me think the remake world is, at the very least, one of these worlds existing within the planet. And then it's just trying to figure out where the OG sits.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's kind of the big challenge at the minute. Where does the OG sit? But
Fascinating.
yeah, the live stream itself is like a system of memories and things like that. It gets explored in Ever Crisis in the First Soldier, and Sephiroth and Glenn are talking about how, and Matt, who's like the sciencey guy in the game, and he's talking about how the live stream is a collection of memories and experiences of everybody, so that, when you're using this material, you should be respectful of it and things like that, because, it's people's existences. And it's always been something that kind of drew me in with Final Fantasy VII, that whole mechanic of the live stream. And it's cool to see it get expanded to have a bit more depth to it and add more possibilities to it.
Yeah, I'm sorry for laughing. Glenn as a character name just kills me
Oh.
because it's like we have Cloud, Aerith, Sephiroth, Genova, Glenn.
Could have called him
And it just
Keith.
doesn't. It just,
Keith.
Yeah, just call him Keith and I'm done with it.
Glenn, Ricky.
You know.
Well, it's Glennaroth now, isn't it?
Yeah, there we
I
go.
thought it was going to be Glennassist, but no, it's Glennaroth.
Yeah.
I had it
well,
wrong.
Are we a little nervous that maybe we've spun one too many threads to be able to resolve in a final game? Where
Good
are we
question.
sitting there?
I'm good.
I'm good.
We're just checking the clock. Yeah, I'm good. I can go for 20, 30 minutes.
Do you? So, to Evan's kind of
No,
question,
sorry. I just understood what you were saying then. I'm an idiot.
Yeah, with part 3,
No,
do you think?
No. Like I was. So when Remake came out and we saw the scale that they did it in, and it was
Yeah.
Midgar, 40 hours.
Yeah.
And then they said it was going to be a 3-part. Because I made videos like, before, could be 5, who knows? I don't know how granular they're going to go with this. And then they were like, oh, it's going to be a trilogy. I was thinking,
No,
right,
it's not.
they're going to have to move super quick through Rebirth. We need to get to the northern crater probably at the very least
what I
to
was
make up
thinking
enough
too.
ground.
Yeah.
And then we didn't. And we didn't even do Wutai
Or Rocket Town.
or Rocket Town, yeah.
Yeah.
So the amount of ground that they've got to cover in the final game, this third game, it's a lot.
And explain quantum physics.
Yeah, just a bit of casual quantum physics in there. They've got to wrap it up. They've not only got to wrap up the OG story, but they've got to wrap up, like you say, all these new threads that they've added.
Yeah.
And Wutai is going to be huge.
Is it
Like Wutai is going to be so much bigger than in the
Is
original
it
game with this whole
possible
war.
they go to 4? Like just like as a complete surely they don't have the budget. Surely they haven't been approved. Surely that's.
I think they've already said 3 and they
I think,
can't.
yeah, they've locked in. Yeah, I think they've locked in.
It's
I
just-
don't think it's the diminishing returns thing as well.
Yeah.
You go to the well too many times.
It just
and
makes me a little nervous.
I'm super nervous. Like, I think this could end up being like a 200-hour game. I'm not even joking.
I do too.
Yeah, I
And
feel
for
like
me,
it could be
Rebirth
huge.
was, right?
Oh, so for you, it's like 250.
Well, I mean, it's insane, right? So I mean, if just for main story stuff, I mean, to hit everything, I'm looking at probably an 80 to 100-hour game, and then you add in open world, maybe High Wind.
Oh, they've said High Wind going to be a thing. They've got a new mechanic that's going to be in the High Wind. That's going to be fun for us to do. Queen's Blood's coming back. That's going to get reworked. We've got the whole snowboarding thing. We've got Wutai.
Right.
And then Chadley will find things for us to do.
I was about to say Chadley, the super boss secret villain, right? I mean, we've got to go through that arc as well. He's going to have a space station.
Chadley holds an interesting position for me because
Really? Okay.
going back to the quantum physics thing that you just touched on a minute ago, a lot of things only happen when observations are going on. And what if Chadley's the observer?
Don't two slit experiment this conversation.
I'm just throwing it out there. Just throwing it out there.
Freaks me out too
throwing it
much.
out there.
I don't like this is no two slit experiment.
I love it.
Like I won't even get into it. It'll kill me. Like you'll literally watch my head crumple from the pressure. It freaks me out.
Like Fist
so
of the
much.
North Star style.
Yeah,
Just like,
there's just no way. Well, what would you say are some of the more important threads that if you say, you know what, maybe they're not all going to get resolved. Maybe mystery is the answer for some of them. But these are some of the ones, and this honestly for both of you, really, like what are the ones that are important to you that's like, you know what, you open the door, you better shut it.
you want to jump into this one first?
Yeah,
Or do you want me to? I'm good.
I bet that you would have plenty to say.
Why don't you guys say it at the same time? What? I'm just kidding.
Oh no, I'm probably very different. So for me, I've kind
go.
of bought into the sequel. I've bought into it completely. So for me, the payoffs need to be not the same. There needs to be change for me in order for this to pay off. Because otherwise,
I love this.
This Meta Sephiroth and this Omni Aerith and this Zack traveling through the worlds and all that kind of business, what was it for?
Little Octazak
The
traveler.
needs, yeah, well, I'd play it.
After Zack.
Oh, that's the third game now. That's it. Done. Decided. Wow.
Zack Traveler.
Oh, but yeah, it's all these threads that are new because I know the answers to the old stuff, and they might change because of these other threads that exist.
Yeah.
But if these answers remain the same as they have been in the OG and the compilation, I already know that. So those resolving in that manner for me would feel like, yeah, cool, as expected. What else? What's this other stuff? Yeah, what's the additional stuff? What does what's he doing?
Yeah.
What's that Sephiroth guy doing?
Yeah.
What's going on with Aerith? What's going on with Zack? What's going on with this more broken Cloud? Are we going to see Cloud pushed further into that pit of despair than we ever saw in the OG? What's the deal with Glenn? Because even though he's ludicrous and he's Glenn, what's going on there?
Yeah.
What's Genesis up to? Because he must just be sat there underneath Midgard, just looking around like, and that's it. What's he doing? What's he been doing? What has he been doing?
And those are such great questions. I've said this on stream. I don't think I've said this on the show before. I live streamed the final 2 chapters of Rebirth. Okay, and I did it across 2 nights. I did the first half of the Temple of the Ancients, and then the second half I did the end of the Temple of the Ancients into chapter 14.
Is ProfNoctis becoming the best looking guy in the room?
He's
no!
You're bit rating hard right now. You're fine.
You're
no!
Okay.
You're okay.
You have to leave that in as well because that's
staying.
good.
We don't listen. We will make one good effort to make everything look nice and sound good, and we'll do that.
That's it.
All you can do. It's all you can do.
And we're going to spend the rest of our time making another video for everybody, and that's just our philosophy. Is we're going to give it our best shot, and we're going to do it. We'll try and
keep on trucking.
No annoying noises, but we're going to take that energy and we're going to go do more with it rather than try and polish everything all the way through.
100%.
That's right. I have a tendency to accept my fate. I don't defy fate very often. So if I'm pixelated, we're going with it.
Yeah, you'll lean into it.
Everyone, I just want to say that is a lie. You are one of the most fate-defying individuals. You are.
What?
You show up in a circumstance, and if it's not what you think should be happening, or if like you want it to be different,
I need to change this.
You're like, this is not working for me. And it's not in a mean way. You exert your influence on situations. I'm not saying you're impatient, but like if you'll let it play out all the way. But if something gets to the end and you're like, this can't happen again. I can't tell you the amount of times I've heard you say in situations, this can't go down this way again.
This can't go down this way.
This is an intervention now, isn't it?
It feels
this
like
an intervention.
Do you have a banner? Like, are we going to hang an intervention?
I think it's one of your most admirable qualities because I'm way too passive. Like, I'm just like, whatever. People are going to make their own decisions. And you're like, they can, and they're bad, and we're going to change it.
We're going to fix that.
And that's why I like working with you. It's great. And
I'm that guy. I feel that.
Any defiance of fate I have, I got from Final Fantasy. That is where we are. Which, to your point, is, it's valid, right? If things go exactly the same and they just kind of accept the fate, is that enough? And I don't know if it is for me or not. I do. Interesting. Yeah. I want them to defy fate, or at least defy my expectations. Right. So like, if they go into the final battle or whatever, and they are confronted with these 2 options of there's a life with Aerith and Zack surviving and living, but it is at a cost. That's something that's new in the original game. And the thing that would subvert my expectations more than anything at this point is for them to see these things and to defy my expectations by choosing the original way. Yeah. And so it gives a new lens and a framing.
Rather than defying fate and destiny, accept fate
it's
and
accepting
destiny.
It. And it's like, okay, this is an interesting thing because for the sake of the world, we choose the world without Aerith and Zack. Maybe. And I could see that being a really interesting and compelling story.
To
Which
feed
could
into that
lead,
as well, it's very
yeah,
interesting that in the church scene when Aerith pushes Cloud back through the portal, the thing she says to him is, "I'm trying to save the world and
and
you,
you,
Cloud." That's the focus. And
such an
that's one of
interesting
those
thing.
things that makes me think this Sephiroth Cloud connection is,
Hmm.
it's not been brought to the forefront yet, even though it's been on display the whole time. I don't think it's been brought to the forefront narratively because,
Mm.
like, we all like the connection between Cloud. Our Sephiroth makes Cloud the center of his existence essentially in order to
Hmm.
persist after the OG and things like that. That's got to feed into this in some capacity. And as we see the game, he's not just making Cloud follow him, he's trying to nurture him. And, well, it's not nurture him, it's push him further into the corner that he wants him to be in so that he
Mm.
acts the way that he wants him to act. And we see at the end of Rebirth, like, that gets undone massively by Zack
Yeah.
and Aerith. They both come forwards and undo that, and then the black materia just resets everything. As soon as he takes it out of his pocket, like, boop, oh no, reunion, let's go.
Yeah.
And it just resets him and undoes all that good work. And I'm worried that we could see Cloud go down a very bad route in the next game because he already
Mm.
went pretty dark in this one.
He did.
And now we've got him seemingly broken and unable to come to terms with what's gone on with Aerith
Yeah.
and still seeing aspects of other worlds now, it seems. And like, Cloud's in it. I'm worried for my boy. I'm really
I
worried
know.
for my boy. I'm so worried for him. But
And
Sephiroth's, that connection with Cloud and Sephiroth, I think that's going to be huge in the third game. And it
oh, I think
wouldn't
it's gonna
shock
be.
me if we go beyond the end of Final Fantasy VII,
Hmm.
because a lot of these moments have been building up to Defying Fate and Destiny. Remake, we get to the end, we defy Fate and Destiny.
Hmm.
Rebirth, we get to the end, we try to defy Fate and Destiny with unknown results at this point, I would say. It could have gone either way. Maybe she's alive in another world, maybe she's dead in all the worlds, and this is just Spirit Aerith. We'll see. But what's going to be the destiny-defying moment at the end of Part 3? That's a massive question, and I don't know what it's going to be. I don't know what it's going to be. There's got to be something, though, because it feels like that's what Sephiroth's pushing for. Because every time he makes one of these moments happen, he grows, he gets stronger, he gets bolder. So what's next?
Oh
Worried for
man,
my
my
boy.
mind is buzzing. My mind
Worried
is
for my boy.
buzzing, right? And I think that we should be worried because I mean, throughout Rebirth, we have all of these experiences that are making Cloud. They're building up his bonds. That's particularly one of the systems. He's gaining all of this affinity with his comrades and understanding the world around him. And then Sephiroth at the end begins severing all of those connections. And what does that do to a person when you are severed from the things that have made you, from your past? So you've got delusion, you've got love, and now it turns into distrust and separation.
Yep.
And you've got the trauma of your past as well. And these three things
Even
cultivate
reality. I feel
a
like the
suffering.
thread of his reality, his connection to just reality in general, has been severed
Right.
by
Because
Sephiroth as well.
now, post Aerith, he has a new lens and perception where he sees the world literally quite differently. At the end of Rebirth, we have a Cloud that has, maybe based on his experiences, what's just happened with Aerith, he's able to perceive reality a little bit differently. He looks up in the sky, sees this rift, all this stuff. What do you think that means? What's going on? If you were to make a conjecture about what that is all going to come out to in Part 3, where do you sit on that one?
Oh, just figure it out. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, please. You know the answers. Well, and,
Yes.
and the reason I ask this, we've
No,
done
I get you.
several of these interviews now, right? And
Yeah.
you're the first one that's really delved into this Zack and this world stuff. So, I mean, that's going to end up being the title some way, and you're going to have a Zack head next to yours.
No, the title is Some People Can Just Do Stuff.
And Zack. And it's Zack.
Zack can just do stuff. Sector
Yeah,
6.
Zack can just do stuff.
I wrote it down.
You did. So I really want, you seem to have thought about this a good deal. So based on Zack, based on this new perception of reality, what does that mean?
So Cloud, I think Cloud's in a bit of a unique spot in general at the minute because he's pretty much the only person left now who's go away wire, who's traversed between the worlds in some capacity, whether it's just his consciousness or he physically transferred between worlds.
Interesting.
I'm not too sure, but there's nobody else that's done that anymore. We could speculate that Aerith had done it, but with the events at the end of Rebirth, she's probably dead in the remake timeline. Let's put it that way. She's probably dead there, but persists in another world potentially. So she's out of the picture. Zack, we don't know where he is. He might be in the remake world. He might be somewhere completely different. So we're not too sure on that. But Cloud's the one who's had that experience, other than Sephiroth, of course.
Yeah.
So it makes sense to me that he can see Aerith, because what I believe's happened is, at the end of Remake, we had that moment where we defied fate and destiny, the whole thing happened around Midgar, and it created this duplicate of Midgar, essentially, which is the the Terrier timeline, and that's where Zack's existence plays out, and all the subworlds off of that play out within Midgar. And I think that what we did at the end of Remake had an effect locally.
Oh,
Time out a second. You said that all of the subworlds reiterate or iterations of Midgar.
Play out in Midgar.
Yeah.
That's what
Pretty much.
So, okay.
So for my mind, I view it as there's one world, we've got one Midgar, but then fronted out of reality almost is this copy of Midgar by the events of the end of Remake.
Have we seen a Terrier anywhere else outside of Midgar? I know there was like a glitch in Junon where there was one,
but
and then they patched it out.
Yeah, I think they've been removed.
They removed it.
This is one of my big questions. Oh, there we
you
go.
guys just glossing over that they removed it. Who is they?
Oh, these are not the Whispers.
You're saying
these are the developers.
Well, maybe they are.
The devs were like, that's not supposed to be there. So they intentionally went back in and removed part of it to tighten the story.
I would argue that someone probably grabbed the wrong JPEG for stamp. Like, instead of stamp 1, stamp 2, and they put it in the wrong place.
Sure.
This isn't the first time something like that has happened. Like in Crisis Core, there was like a what's the brand of photo?
Nora.
Getty's Images.
Right? They had
Getty's Images portrait in the Shinra mansion, and then they had like a Jesus painting somewhere in there. And so it's like this sort of thing with mixed up files does happen.
Right, but the fact that they went back in and said this one isn't supposed to be here, to me makes that even more significant, because if they're using the animal taxonomy of the canines to be the primary identifier of this idea of multiple worlds, if there was one in the wrong place and they said oopsie, then they're reinforcing something.
Yeah.
That's very
It goes deeper than that as well, because all of the other variants are variants of dogs. So you have a pug, you have a chihuahua, you have a Spitz, whatever it is. I don't know. I'm not a dog guy, but you have various depictions of breeds, like different breeds of dogs that delineate which world is which.
Right.
And you have the Beagle world, which is the world Remake takes place in, where the Beagle's everywhere. Then you have the Terrier world, which is where Zack exists. And then branched off from that, you have the other 3. But also branched off from that, you have the one that Aerith creates for that dream date thing with Cloud. So everything seems to branch off from that location and that break in Fate and Destiny. And what have we just seen in the area where they are now, around near the Temple of the Ancients? Another massive break in Fate and Destiny. Aerith is saying, I'm going to stay here and keep praying, because I'm pretty confident she knows that she can't leave that place. Like her world is there, and I think she knows that. So that's why she doesn't go with Cloud.
Oh, that's interesting.
That's so interesting.
And Cloud can see the signs of it.
That's really interesting,
because he's traversed these worlds.
I love the way.
But now he's moving away from that.
Yeah, I love the way that you're thinking about, like, we can only count on what we see, right? Like, not just what we could infer. So
I mean, we can speculate, definitely.
But if somebody hasn't been seen outside of this specific region, that the context and setting in which we encounter something is just as important as the narrative content of that thing, because it's all a part of understanding where maybe some of these encapsulations happens, what the range of some of these, like Yogacara hopes and dreams getting spun up is. This is very, very interesting.
Well, then it all comes down to like it's all perception based, the Yogacara Buddhism thing, and what are we seeing? We're seeing Cloud's perception being actively altered now in this moment, and we saw Zack's perception being actively altered, and then different versions of Zack having different. It's. I'm worried for my boy. I'm worried for my boy.
I know. So, and with Yogacara, you mentioned it.
Yeah.
Just passingly, we could do a whole other interview and talk on that
that's
one.
a whole thing.
It's very intense, and you've got to have some cursory knowledge of Buddhism for that one. But the idea is that perceptions can actually create realities
Yeah.
to some degree. And so in order to create a new reality, you have to create a new perception.
Yeah.
And this seems to be something that is being pushed on at least a few of the characters in this. So just wanted to catch the audience up to what you're mentioning here.
And it seems like Sephiroth's actively trying to engineer those moments, it would seem. But to what end? That's the problem. To what end?
But that's a very disciplined analysis, I think, John, of what you see.
Oh, well,
basically,
thank you.
this is the only thing that we've seen, and we've only seen it in this place. Therefore, my speculation, once it delves outside of that, I hate that word delve now that AI uses it all the time.
I know, right?
I'm like, oh, I said it. It's just one that I have to just eject from my vernacular. So here it goes. Goodbye. It really is, though. It is a disciplined and faithful analysis of saying this is what we know, and based on what we know, this is how far out we get in conjecture and theory, and then these are the anchors of what is confirmed. And it's almost just like really good like exegesis in general.
It really is.
But this is what makes Zack so interesting going forwards now, because has Zack been pulled out of that system now, or is he still in it? That's one of the big lingering questions for me post Rebirth. Like, what's going on with Zack? And I don't even care about Zack as a character. I don't even, he was in the OG for about a minute and a half.
Right.
But I'm sat here now thinking, like, what's going on with Zack, man? He's got the
you
answers,
can also,
hasn't he?
as a plot device, you can use it as a means to work through a concept that you're then going to have the main character experience, so that the main character doesn't have to be the plot device, right? Like you can do that where you spend a lot of time establishing the rules and what something is using another character. Now that this character happens to have psychological impact on the main character, so there's even a little bit more of a through line.
Well, this is where the layers come into it, because you can be true and faithful with Cloud,
right?
And you can go off on a Madden with Zack and do whatever you want
with Zack.
and then the two converge. And we've got Cloud now going through what Zack went through potentially, with being able to perceive these tears in the skies and alternate worlds, and Zack potentially, and we have no evidence of this, but potentially being alive back in the normal world,
or just as much irrelevant.
But with the thing, literally, he has returned to irrelevance. He has literally come back to his irrelevant. No, but like,
tech demo.
Remember what I was saying earlier, though, about how when the worlds are created, it seems like they have less life stream, less life. That church that he lands in, blooming, vibrant, every single flower.
I have nothing else.
Possibilities. I love possibilities, and that's kind
too.
of when I'm getting into the theory videos again rather than the breakdowns.
Yeah.
When I approach them, I tend to put multiple possibilities for one subject into the same video and kind of devil's advocate and explore each of the possibilities. And by the end, I'll say I prefer this one, but all of these are equally viable, and let's explore them and let's see what we can find.
I love that. I love that so much, because when we do teaching, and one of the things that Wade and I have similar values in is we say, here are three relatively solid frameworks to understand this concept. Obviously, I have a preference and a draw, but let's make sure that we're talking about healthy, valid, vetted frameworks, and then have our discussion within that so that we can understand what is more true through tradition or research or experience. And then that's going to frame our conversation so that we know that we're really doing our due diligence and understanding a concept as fully as we can with the time that's provided. And that's what I've had fun with this channel too. I have no idea what to wrap us up with, because we've talked about what it would be like if they stick the landing. We've talked a little bit about like why they chose to tell the story this way. And I think maybe, Wade, unless you have a burning question that you want to use to wrap us up, we maybe just kind of cinch it up,
wrap it up,
and see where people can find him and say thank you. But if you have another question,
here's what I'll say. I don't have another question.
I'm Cloud right now.
I don't have another question, but here's what I would like to say. He's gone.
Oh, he's gone. No,
He's
that's
just
it. He's
fallen
done.
into the world below us.
Logistically, I'm not sure how I get back up from here.
Aris just gave him a little push and he's
I'm
gone.
gonna
Push. Yeah, maybe you need a little push. Here's it. This interview, in a lot of ways, has defied my expectations. Okay,
Oh.
I've followed your channel. I knew it would be a great conversation. I knew it would. However, and like I very seldom in these interviews kind of talk about where I am and kind of my hopes for the future and stuff. I would personally like to see things kind of go the same way as the original game. I'd love that sort of thing. I like the way that they're telling the story. I like the new devices. I'm a big apologist for the whispers. I think that's what people joke saying, "Oh, King of the Whispers over there." I love that stuff because it gives me a lot to play with and stuff.
Oh, it does. It's a really interesting concept and mechanism that they've
plot
chosen
device,
to
right?
use. Yeah, it's amazing.
Knowing that you are more of a requel or sequel sort of guy, I was really curious how you might approach some of these new elements. But you have created a conversation today that has deepened my love and my appreciation for Zack and what they're doing with the worlds in a whole new way. I was not expecting that today. I knew that I would be
That's what we try and do.
but you've really helped me understand Zack in a whole new light, and I can't thank you enough for that. Like this is critical research for me, and so thank you.
I am the part of the person when I read a novel that has multiple characters and I get really interested in a specific storyline.
Yeah.
And then they chapter turns over and it's another character, but I'm so curious about what happens. Like when I was a kid, I would put a bookmark in that spot, flip to the next section with the character that I wanted, just to see just a little bit and then come back and read it. Right, exactly. And so when you have these things like Zack, the way that you described it, helping put the focus on the significance of what it could be and settling in and not just trying to push past those parts, I think is just a way to appreciate and really experience the totality of the story instead of just jumping to the parts to see what happened. There's a difference between experiencing something and just wanting to see the result of something. And I do so appreciate the lens that you provided that has helped us do that.
My goodness.
I mean, for me, with the ending, sorry to cut you off there.
Please, no, go for it.
With the ending, like, it could end up the same and still pay off for me, I think. But I just think they have to do something with what they've set up, because they've set up so much to talk about.
Yeah.
They've set up so many threads to go down and so many possibilities to consider. And I feel like they've given themselves a bit of an impossible task.
I
in a lot of ways. I kind of feel like I'm potentially going to be disappointed even if they give me everything I want. I don't even know anymore. Do you know what I mean? That's kind of where I'm at. I feel like I'm very much just going to go with it. Whatever it is, I'm just going to go with it. And if it feels right, then it's good.
But that's the only way that we arrive at something that's truly spectacular, is for them to, especially with a big AAA title, to challenge themselves to the point to take the risk. And I have so much admiration for them, especially when you look at the environment of video gaming and then the budgets that we're talking about for some of these things. The fact that they got people to sign off on it, that they earned credibility for their entire career to be able to create essentially like a generationally seminal work that is an incredible thing that we can look to and even have the space to have these discussions is impressive. And like they've issued a big challenge to themselves, and they haven't given us any reason not to trust them so far, and so well,
I mean, I was when Remake came out, it was good. It was good. It sets things up. It's a beautiful prequel to what I'm expecting from the rest of it. And Rebirth just came along and went, oh, you were expecting that, here's 50% more. And if they can replicate that going forwards into part 3, Hamaguchi's made some big claims recently that it's going to be the best game you've ever played. It's going to be the biggest game they're going to do. And
a big talk. I love it.
Yeah, I imagine if it is.
I know, right? What if? We could talk and dream all day about that.
We
started out this conversation, and you said you are a self-proclaimed purist. But to all the purists that are out there, I just want to point out you have shown a deep appreciation for even the new stuff that's
Oh
going
yeah,
on here. Purists get a bad rap online,
yeah.
and you defy that expectation in a lot of ways. And
The
I
problem
appreciate
is,
that about you. It's so cool.
yeah,
So I
it's all
love it.
Final Fantasy, and it gets judged against itself in context. So if you really
Mm,
love one part of it,
Yeah.
other parts are gonna look bad by comparison. But that doesn't mean it's bad. Like I still think pretty much every Final Fantasy game is good in some way.
yeah, yeah.
It's just
It's
finding what
somebody's
you want.
favorite, you
Yeah,
know.
exactly. There's something in it for everybody, and that's one of the best things
Right.
about the franchise, I think.
Okay,
Absolutely.
so
Where can
this
people
has
find you?
been that's it. Where can people
No,
find
you
you?
do
Because
the thank you. I interrupted the thank you. I'm sorry. I'm sorry,
no,
Wade.
I was going
I'm
to say
sorry,
thank
viewers.
you so much. This has been just one of the most delightful conversations, and just want to say to everybody, if you have not checked out Sector Six's channel, make sure you go over there and don't just watch the stuff. Like it, comment, subscribe to the channel. Like, let's give him 1,500 new subscribers. Okay,
You're
well,
gonna
let's go. Just jump over there. Okay,
you're
because
gonna
this
leave.
is the kind you like the deep dive stuff that we do on this
Yeah.
channel, and you don't know Sector 6, you need to. Okay, he is a research collaborator at this point. So, where can they find you?
So on YouTube, if you just type in Sector 6, you'll find it. I think it's at Sector 6 UK, all as
Yeah.
one word.
Okay.
But if you pretty much just search Sector 6, you'll find me on most platforms. I'm on Twitter, I'm on Facebook, I'm on YouTube, stream on Twitch. Come along and say hi.
That's
Get
awesome.
involved.
Anything that you have upcoming, that like a video series? I know you just finished up a chapter by chapter breakdown. You said you were excited to get into some more of the analysis. Anything upcoming that you would want people to look forward to maybe in the next month or two?
I'm probably looking at doing. I've got a couple of other games to cover at the minute, like just looking at review content stuff. So, like Visions of Mana. I want to put a video out there talking about my thoughts of Visions of Mana. A few other games like that, Shin Megami Tensei 5. But as far as Final Fantasy 7 goes, I'm probably going to be looking at. There's a few. One second. Because I've got notes on my desktop here. This is my when I'm making a video and something pops into my head and I think, right, this is going to be something that I'm going to break out into another video.
Right.
What I'll do is I'll just create a folder on my desktop and name it the idea. And that's it. And then that reminds me and I can come back to it. But like generally, there's one thing that I kind of want to explore and it ties into that thing where we were talking about Cloud potentially transferring between the worlds and other people transferring between the worlds. And it focuses in on the essence of the white materia. And could that and the clear materia maybe be some sort of mechanism to bring people from one world to another? And just wild possibilities for a bit. I feel like I just want to go on some wild tangents for a little bit and then come back to some of the more core elements like Sephiroth's plan, Zack, stuff like that. I'm just up for going into the weeds at the minute and just going crazy.
Let it go.
Yeah, just have some fun. Nothing too structured. Just talk nonsense. That's my life. I'll do that.
I love it. Well,
Well,
thank you so much.
absolutely love it.
So nice to have met you and have this conversation. And thanks for all the time and the energy that you spend on these things and helping us enjoy the things that we enjoy even more, which is what we're all about.
It's
Wait.
been a pleasure being invited on. I've had such a good time. It's been brilliant. Thank you.
Well, everybody, like I said, make sure you go check out Sector 6's channel. And while you are here, make sure you like and subscribe to this channel as well. And stay tuned for all of our Final Fantasy VII Rebirth Lecture Series content, continuing with lecture plays on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and look forward to future interviews. We hope that you will walk tall, my friends. And until next time, we'll see you in class.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Thanks to Sector 6 for a great time and a great interview. Thanks to Husky by the Geek for our theme music. Thanks to Nick Smith for doing our graphics. Stay safe out there in the caves. And most of all, thanks to you, viewer. This program is brought to you by viewers like you, and we just so appreciate you taking the time to watch and listen to this. We hope that you're well. Hang in there with whatever you're dealing with back in your world, and we will see you next week for our next episode. Bye-bye, everybody.